The sun scorched the metal of the rifle. The wind tore through the valley like an invisible blade. At 2,900 meters away, the target shimmered in the heat's mirage. Everyone before her had failed. But when she adjusted the scope and held her breath, the entire desert seemed to hold its breath with her. One shot, one chance. And the story would no longer be just a test. The heat of the Blackstone Proving Grounds didn't come only from the sun. It seemed to rise from the ground itself, from the black sand that shimmered like crushed glass. Each step left a mark that vanished within seconds. The air smelled of hot metal and old gunpowder. Overhead, the sound of rifles being adjusted blended with the constant hum of the wind. It was the final day of the Marine Corps' Advanced Sniper Course, the day when the impossible would be tested. Among the shooters in beige uniforms and dust-covered faces, one figure moved with an almost unnatural calm. Sergeant Riley Hart, 31, remained on one knee beside her rifle, cleaning the scope with the same care one might give a sacred instrument. The ID tag clipped to her vest bore her name in faded letters, but it was the small dented metal pendant around her neck that truly drew attention. A misshapen trinket, hanging from a short chain. It had belonged to her brother, a Marine killed during a reconnaissance mission in the Eastern Mountains. She never spoke about it, ever. But everyone knew that piece of metal was more than a memory. It was a silent promise. While the other competitors stretched their arms and exchanged anxious glances, Riley stayed quiet watching the horizon. The heat warped the field, creating mirages that made the target appear to float. Instructor Sergeant Michael Turner, a veteran with a face carved by sun and sand, walked between the firing lines. His shadow passed over them like a sentence. "Remember," he said, voice rough and dry, "this field separates those who dream from those who survive." The words hung in the air like dust. Some laughed nervously. Others took deep breaths. Riley only ran her thumb over the pendant, as if the phrase had struck something deep inside her. Since the start of the course, she had been called the theorist, the best in written tests, the most precise in simulations, but, according to the instructor, too emotional for real combat. And that day, everyone seemed eager to prove the theory right. The target was 2,900 meters away, a steel plate the size of a human head, placed atop a stone pedestal. None of the 30 candidates had managed to hit it. The crosswind shifted without warning, and the heat distorted the sightline. Each missed shot was followed by a dry echo, a sound that symbolized failure. Riley, however, didn't see it as a test of aim. To her, it was a test of silence. She had learned from her brother that patience was the true weapon of a sniper. "The wind speaks, Riley," he used to say. "Those who learn to listen survive." Now, in that desert of stone and fire, she was about to prove whether she had truly learned. The instructor passed behind her again, watching the unnerving calm with which she prepared her gear. There was something unsettling about that self-control. Without turning, Riley spoke softly, almost in a whisper. "Ready for the impossible, sir?" Veteran Michael Turner didn't reply. He simply nodded, his gaze distant. The sun climbed higher, the wind grew stronger, and in that moment, the desert itself seemed to hold its breath along with her. The firing range seemed alive. The air shimmered, mirages danced on the horizon, and the heat made the metal of the rifles hiss under the sun. Blackstone Proving Grounds forgave no distractions. Here every wrong breath cost a shot, and every second of doubt turned into defeat. The metal target, positioned exactly 2,900 meters away, was almost invisible to the naked eye, a small silver smudge lost among black rocks and the wavering reflection of the heat. The instructors knew it was cruel, and that was the point. This test didn't only measure precision, it measured mental control. With each attempt, the same sound, the shot, the echo, and the dry silence of error. One by one, the candidates stepped back with vacant looks, defeated. Dust covered boots. Sweat ran down burnt faces. Chief Instructor Michael Turner watched everything without expression, marking names off in red on his clipboard. Riley Hart waited in the short shadow of a tarp, lying on her back in the sandy ground, the rifle by her side. The heat made the air vibrate, but she seemed immune. She watched the wind flags anchored across the range, analyzing every movement. One of them fluttered irregularly, a sign of a crosswind at almost 14 miles per hour. She noticed a pattern. The wind changed always after the shot, never before. A common mistake. Everyone adjusted their aim at the wrong moment. Without writing anything down, Riley recorded it all in her mind: temperature, incline, gust rhythm. While the others relied on automatic calculations, she remembered the phrase her brother repeated: "The wind is treacherous for those who look too much and listen too little." When the penultimate candidate missed, the sound of the distant impact made some people exhale. Instructor Michael Tern scratched another name off the list. Then he looked toward Riley. "Hart," he called. "Your turn." She rose slowly. She brushed dust from her gloves and walked silently to the firing line. The instructor followed her with his eyes, evaluating every movement at unsteady, technical, contained. When she reached the line, she positioned the rifle with millimetric precision. "You can still back out, Hart. You've proven discipline. Don't ruin the record with a mistake. All the other soldiers missed. It's impossible to hit it," said Veteran Sergeant Michael Turner. Riley looked at him, eyes narrowed beneath the sweat-darkened cap. "I didn't come this far to leave without the sound of my shot." "Sir," she lay down, resting her left elbow on the hot sand. The weapon weighed on her shoulder. The barrel gleamed under the sun. The world was reduced to 3 elements: the wind, the target, and the heart. A second before she aimed, she touched the necklace. The metal was hot, almost burning. It was as if her brother were there, reminding her to breathe. The instructor stepped back without saying a word. Silence fell over the field like a heavy tarp. All eyes were on her. Riley adjusted the scope. Time seemed to slow, and as her finger moved toward the trigger, the entire desert seemed to hear the sound of its own breathing. The wind shifted, slightly, almost imperceptibly. But Riley noticed. The grain of sand that brushed her cheek didn't lie. She drew in a deep breath, feeling the dry air scratch her throat. The heat made the scope pulse with mirages, warping the horizon. The target shimmered like a silver illusion, unreachable, distant, almost mocking her. Now the entire world fit inside the scope. No sound, no movement, only the faint crackle of metal expanding under the sun. Riley moved the rifle with microscopic adjustments, millimeters at a time, calculating every deviation. Distance 2,900 meters, wind speed 13.7 miles per hour, crosswind from right to left. Incline 4 degrees negative, barrel temperature high but stable. She was turning data into instinct. The instructor watched, motionless, arms crossed, disbelief in his eyes. He had seen hundreds of shooters, some brilliant, others arrogant, but there was something about Riley that unsettled him. It wasn't confidence. It was silence. The kind of calm only those who've lost too much can have. She exhaled slowly. Her finger touched the trigger, and in that instant a memory swept through her mind like a gust of wind. Her brother laughing in the garage, saying, "Only shoot when the world stops moving." And then the world stopped. The shot shattered the silence like a dry thunderclap. The recoil slammed into her shoulder. The sound rolled through the hills, traveling like a living wave. Bam, 2, 3 seconds, nothing. Then a faint metallic ping echoed in the distance. Almost no one believed it. The sound arrived like an impossible echo, as if the desert itself had returned a truth the wind tried to hide. The instructor lifted his eyes from the stopwatch, disbelief freezing him. He lowered his binoculars slowly. Impact confirmed. For a second, no one breathed. Then a murmur spread among the shooters. Surprise or disbelief. They seemed petrified, as if they'd just witnessed something that broke every rule. The impossible had a sound, and they had all heard it. Riley didn't smile. She simply pulled away from the scope, inhaled and closed her necklace in her palm. That moment was the end of something that had begun long before that day, since the loss, since the silent promise to continue where her brother had stopped. The instructor walked up to her, stopping beside the rifle. "How did you adjust the shot without the anemometer?" She looked toward the horizon and replied flatly, "The wind has a sound, sir. You just have to listen." He stayed quiet for a moment, as if realizing there are things numbers can't measure. Then he wrote something on the clipboard and murmured, "Hart, welcome to Spectre." The murmuring around them stopped. Spectre, the Marine Corps' elite sniper unit, didn't accept mistakes or doubts. Riley just nodded. As the sun sank, painting the range in orange and bronze, she disassembled the rifle with the same calm she had fired it. Each piece she packed away was a silent vow. Never miss again. Never hesitate again. On the horizon, the target still gleamed, a small scar of metal marked by a bullet that had crossed nearly 3 kilometers, to prove that the impossible sometimes just needs someone who can hear the wind. Minutes later, no applause, no celebration. Only the distant sound of boots on sand, and the wind returning softly, whistling through the metal structures of the range. A few soldiers approached, hesitant. One of them tried to say something, but gave up halfway through the sentence. Others looked away, maybe out of respect, maybe out of shame. It was the kind of feat that made it hard to look the person who achieved it in the eye. Later, when the sun was gone and the desert turned blue, Riley was still there, sitting at the edge of the range, rifle beside her, necklace between her fingers. The night wind was cold and clean, carrying with it a faint echo, the same metallic sound she'd heard hours earlier. But now it sounded different. It wasn't triumph. It wasn't glory. It was something deeper. She understood then that the sound didn't belong to the target nor to the rifle. It was the sound of absolute focus, of a mind falling silent when the body knows exactly what to do. The sound of courage stripped of vanity, and as she looked at the horizon she realized, the impossible isn't proven to others. It's proven in silence, when no one else is watching. Days later, the official test report was released. Amid pages filled with numbers and statistics, there was just one handwritten note from the chief instructor, first to complete the Blackstone shot, and the last to ever doubt herself. Years went by, and they say that when the wind crosses the Blackstone testing range on certain mornings, the sound of that impact still echoes, as a reminder. Not of the feat, but of the faith, of the certainty that the impossible has an echo. And sometimes that echo has a name. Riley Hart, thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video, where every mission tells a story,